So joining us on the line is April Bloomfield. April is one of my favorite chefs. She's been around for some time, but she had this restaurant, The Spotted Pig, which is really fantastic. It opened in 2003, and it's been some years since then, but she has finally won a James Beard Award for Best Chef in all of New York City. That's all 5 boroughs. That's a huge deal for a chef. These are like an Oscar in the food industry, a James Beard Award. And my first experience actually going to one of her restaurants was with a good friend of mine. His name was Jeremiah Tower. And we went, and it was a fantastic time. And what I didn't realize until now, April, was that you actually, when you first came to the States, because you were in the UK, you were a chef in the UK, you came to the United States. What I didn't realize was when you first came over, that you actually worked in the same kitchen that Jeremiah did at Chez Panisse. There's a long line of fantastic chefs that you have now sort of surpassed in lineage in a way.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's very nice and generous of you to say. I was only there 3 months, but I mean, it was one of my dreams to go work at Chez Panisse. I'd read Alice's cookbooks, and I could connect with her cookbooks to her writing. And, I just kind of tried to get there with any means possible. I had a couple of options. There was a couple of people that knew somebody that worked there. So I tried a couple of attempts and nothing came through. And finally, I did get through, probably like a year after trying to get there to work. So basically, it was, I wanted to take a pilgrimage to Chez Panisse. I wanted to learn just firsthand, after reading the books, exactly what it was like. So, I loved the whole experience, really. I think it was just very, very familiar, comforting environment to work in. Just having the produce that they had and seeing it and to be able to touch it and cook with it just blew my mind. And actually, I got to cook on the line, which I never in a million years would have thought. Through some unfortunate accident that one of their chefs had, through him unfortunately having this accident, I ended up cooking, which was great for me. Unfortunately, fortunately he fully recovered. But just mind-blowing experience. I mean, I had to pinch myself every day cooking on the line at Chez Panisse, just to figure out if it was real or not.
Yeah, and coming from the River Cafe, of course, what was that transition like for you? Because I could imagine that there are different spices, and it must have been interesting to sort of experience that.
I think the transition from coming from the River Cafe to New York was a little easier after visiting Chez Panisse. That kind of California, cool, laid back, but fun city, was a good kind of introduction to the busy, hectic New York lifestyle. I think if I'd probably not done San Francisco first and fell in love with San Francisco, I probably would have got to New York and was like, what the hell is going on? So I think that was a good introduction to from the River Cafe to San Francisco, Chez Panisse to New York.
And can you believe that it's been so long since you first opened that restaurant? 2003. It's been 11 years since that restaurant first opened.
I can't believe it at all, actually. I really don't know what I was thinking when I took the job to be chef and owner of Spotted Pig. I probably just thought that maybe I would do like 2 years and see how it goes. But 10 years has flown by. I mean, it just goes back to like all these chefs that move around, really, that they only give like 6 months here and there. And really, 10 years on, we're probably just in the adolescent stage right now. So restaurants grow all the time. And, and it's important for them to keep growing. I can't imagine where we're going to be, hopefully, touch wood, in 20 years' time. But, if we're lucky, we'll be there.
Yeah, and I'm sure a few more James Beard Awards along the way.
My ultimate goal is to make delicious food and to be super professional in the way that I do it. I like to be organized and clean. I like to be efficient. But at the end of the day, I like to just cook really, really tasty food and that make people happy. Like, there's nothing that gives me more pleasure than to look out into one of my restaurants and see happy diners, licking their knives, forks, and plates after just finishing a dish, or just having fun in general. Really, people smiling, drinking, and coming together. That really kind of satisfies me. That's my ultimate goal. Is to just hopefully cook food that people really enjoy eating.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that some of the people that you cook for, whether they are in the UK or the United States, that maybe they have a different palate? Do UK diners have a different palate than an American diner, do you think?
I don't think there's a different palate or taste in comparison to like New York, the US and England. I mean, I was quite surprised probably how open people in New York were. I mean, I think my food is very simple, clean and rustic, but people seem to think it's quite revolutionary at the same time, which is, something I don't really think about. But I think the Americans that I cook for in New York really, they really took like a duck to water to all the offal that I was cooking, which was, it's fun. It's nice to be able to cook the food you like and for people to devour it and enjoy it and appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah, speaking of your dishes, I was looking through your cookbook, and I've never really had this experience with a cookbook before where I felt like I could open the book and want to eat every dish that was there. There was not one dish that I said I would not try.
You're just full of compliments today, aren't you, Gary? Well, that's very nice. I wanted to make a cookbook that people would use. I give my professional tips in there, and it's very much my voice, and it's very much how I teach my cooks and my staff. And my only hope was that it would translate and that people would absorb and enjoy it. And I think that has been the case. So I feel very privileged that happened, and that people are cooking from it and learning from it. I mean, that's very that kind of inspires me to get feedback like that, just to keep pushing and keep being better as a chef.
So you've been able to work with a lot of different chefs, and I'm just wondering, who do you find most complimentary to your own style?
Yeah, I mean, I have my people and my friends that I like to cook with on a regular basis. Like Nancy Silverton, Mary Sue Milliken, Suzanne Go, and we do a lot of charity for Alex's Lemonade. So it's always fun to kind of just be in that environment and share that moment with them. But I've also managed to cook alongside Daniel Hum and Paul Liebrandt, and that's quite different because their technique and their style is on the other side of the coin to mine. But it's nice to kind of, be outside your comfort zone sometimes and kind of feel uncomfortable. And I think when you feel uncomfortable, that's when you're really out of your element, and you kind of, you just know that you're absorbing something new and you're learning.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Paul Liebrandt, very modernist type approach to French cuisine.
But it's nice because, it is quite modernist and it's kind of a little bit molecular, probably not as much as Wiley, but kind of nice because it helps me think outside the box, and I'll probably do something that I wouldn't normally do, and so that gives me a chance to experiment and to just have fun and play around with it. And sometimes things work and sometimes things don't work, and that just excels you to kind of push a little bit more and try and figure it out until it is something super delicious and works.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of them, will you go to in Alder, one of Wiley's restaurants, or will you go to the Elm, Paul Liebrandt? Is there a particular type of food that you'd like to eat the most, or would say is sort of the pinnacle of restaurants in New York?
I just love just rustic, soulful food. And if I find a place that I really like, or I particularly like the vibrancy and the clean flavors and the kind of, I don't know, it's got to be a restaurant that really hits my soul to keep going back. It's really got to grab some kind of something inside me and kind of shake me a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate all restaurants, but I like local kind of down homey places that really kind of satisfy my soul and my palate.
And we're talking about some great chefs here. I mean, you've got Paul Lebrant, Wiley Dufresne. A lot of these chefs, they know the history, they know the context of the dishes that they're cooking. And I say that because I talk to a lot of young chefs who don't know the name Richard Olney or Alice Waters doesn't ring a bell. And I'm wondering how important maybe you think the context of the history and the things that you're cooking, or maybe the chefs that have cooked them and the history of these restaurants are to creating the next great chef.
I mean, I think some knowledge, some historic knowledge of, a dish or where it originated from or a chef is good, but some people are just not into learning that side of it, and I think that's okay too, and maybe they'll bring something new to the table. But I like learning, so, do I absorb everything? I'm not quite sure, but, I love reading cookbooks. I love reading, cookbooks from England that were based on medieval feasts, and I love to learn little bits of history about that. But again, I don't know, I mean, it's a good question, Gary, that is. But I think, it's each to their own, I think.
Yeah. Well, I get to ask, I'm granted one wacky question per interview. And I usually ask all the chefs that I have on, I ask them this one question. Rachel Ray, I've asked Tom Colicchio, Carla Hall, a bunch of these people. And here's the scenario. You're at a dinner party. Food fight breaks out. What is your weapon of choice?
Oh my, probably some cream. Anything that's super messy. And if I was to daydream a little bit and think about how I would like to dispense the cream, if I could have this imaginary machine that I could just, like a big vacuum cleaner that would suck up the cream and spray it all over them, that would be even better, wouldn't it?
So what kind of advice would you give maybe a chef who's coming through the business now? Because it's tough.
I would give the advice, just keep your head down, work really, really hard, absorb, be a sponge, listen, be quiet, push every day, even when the going gets tough. Sometimes when the going gets tough, you might feel like, you can't cope or you're not doing a great job, but, it's the getting through that kind of painful part that actually makes you grow. And, just taste, because the only way you're going to become a great chef is if you taste and you adjust and you taste again.
Yeah, so you've had those moments of being in the kitchen, because there are so many chefs that talk about being in the kitchen and getting yelled at or, having sort of this breaking moment. So you've had that.
I think I've probably had many. It's not easy cooking. You go through many emotions. You'll probably go through emotions, I'm not good enough, or gosh, how am I ever going to get through this huge, massive pit? I'm going to go down, But it's the pushing, it's the just getting through it, and just kind of, and every time you get through those difficult moments, you're building this muscle, and it's a memory muscle, and things get easier, and it just alleviates all the stress. But if you're the type of person to just give up and not push through the pain, with whatever it might be, just as I explained, or your boss is yelling at you, you're just going to come out stronger at the end instead of just giving up, really. I think that's how I probably see it. It's nothing more satisfying than getting through a busy service, and you're sweating and you've probably burnt yourself a couple of times, but wow, how amazing it is to work hard and feel satisfied at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. I'd rather work hard than be somebody lazy that's not, that doesn't have, any motivation. Keep persevering. I think the hard work will pay off in the end.
And, my last question for you, I'm sure everybody asks you whether you will open another restaurant in the future, but where do you see yourself in maybe 5 to 10 years, do you think?
I've never really been one to plan my life. I think things have just kind of worked out the way they have worked out. Never been really the one to have like a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. So I'm not quite sure what the future has to hold. I do have a couple of concepts that I have in my mind that I would like to work on. Whether they come to fruition, I'm not sure. What I am doing right now is I'm concentrating on all my restaurants that I have. Make sure that my employees are happy and comfortable, that my customers are enjoying delicious food every day, and hopefully they can come back and it's going to be the same every time they come back. And I've got a new cookbook coming out in March, so that's all done, and I'm going to concentrate on just kind of promoting that and pushing that.
Well, April Bloomfield, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. I will be on the hunt for that cookbook.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much.